Christmas wrapping. There's nothing more comforting than the sound of a carefully and meticulously wrapped gift, cradled in the finest paper, being aggressively ripped apart at speeds only seen once a year, Christmas morning. All that work that goes into every wrapped gift by fathers and mostly mothers around the world is quickly and violently destroyed in seconds. So why do we still wrap gifts every year? What form of self-punishment do we enjoy outside of the holidays so much that it has trained us to still go through with this silly tradition of painstakingly putting paper outside of a box to conceal its contents only to see it destroyed in 1/100th of the time it took to make look so beautiful? Of course, all of this is followed by the patriarch walking around the living room with a giant black trash bag, picking up the mutilated carcasses of Christmas gifts. Even now, why does the sound of a gift being unwrapped on Christmas morning send me back in time, Ratatouille style, to the Christmas mornings of my childhood? There's a simple explanation for it all, really. It all comes down to this. It makes us feel good. It makes us feel good to wrap a gift and have it look so presentable. It shows the thought and care we have not just for the gift, but for the recipient. It feels good to see a wrapped gift, to know that someone cares about us enough to take what could have been stuffed into a bag and, thanks to our friends at Scotch and Hallmark, create a work of art to be presented Christmas morning. And finally, it feels good to rip it all to pieces. But Christmas wrapping hasn't always been something that society expected of us. According to a recent study, women outnumber men when it comes to who is in charge of wrapping by a ratio of 10-1, and it is women we have to thank for originating gift wrapping. Before the 1870s, Christmas wrapping was unheard of. There was no element of surprise to presents. They were found underneath the tree naked as the day they were made. At the time, presents were often placed inside of and on the Christmas tree, and a cumbersome package would not be supported by the branches. If a present was meant to be a surprise, it was hidden inside of a stocking, which at the time was just a sock. By the mid-1870s, wrapped presents to hide their contents were mentioned in short stories semi-regularly, particularly in St. Nicholas magazine. By 1885, it was commonplace to find artwork in major publications showing a busy street with shoppers coming and going, arms filled with loot, almost all wrapped in some kind of package. Mostly unattractive brown paper bundles tied up with string. However, at the time, these wrappings were purely functional. A protective layer for the busy shopper in a dirty city, making sure when the presents arrived home, they appeared just as they did in the store. Throughout the 1870s, as giving gifts to loved ones became more and more common,
$10 spending cap.
Uncle Brad and a special friend Kate, and maybe this will make it.
So did widespread rules of gift-giving etiquette become more common in magazines. And who was the target audience for these etiquette guidelines? The people who bought magazines, of course. Women. These magazines were often filled with trivialities for women to fill their time, like recipes and how to be submissive to your man. Wrapping etiquette was a perfect fit to shame the already overworked mother into spending her precious free time during the busy holiday season making the gifts she had to go purchase look as fancy and luxurious as possible. Because what else did she have to do?
No, don't dwell on the past, Island Boy. We're having a party. Cheese, wine, and Larry's favorite hickory honey ham.
Even when the main gifts for children were still goodies hid up inside of the tree, the women of the time were encouraged to make paper cornucopias to make the candy or nuts or tiny baubles more presentable. The next major step in the Christmas gift wrapification of America was the onset of boxed goods. By 1890, boxes were a way of life as a necessity. Goods and toiletries and sundries were no longer made in small batches displayed at the location they were made and sent home with the buyer. They were now mass-produced all over and shipped to different stores and locations. Because of this, these items needed a protective covering to keep them from breaking in transport. Boxes were the natural answer. They made products easy to stack, easy to display, and easy to send home with the shopper. Look at the display piece, grab the box underneath it, and be on your way. We still do it today. In fact, boxes became such a staple of the toy industry that now boxes were gilded with golden lettering. Some items came in wooden boxes made for display inside of the home. As far as a seller was concerned, A pretty box was just as important at making a sale as the item it contained. In fact, the demand for box goods was so high that stores like Macy's started whole divisions for wrapping called wrapping desks, almost entirely manned by small children ages 10 to 15 working overtime to wrap all the box goods in white or brown paper and tie them with string. Their tiny little fingers were perfect for the delicate ties necessary to bring a Christmas box together. By 1906, Macy's advertised its fancy and expeditious gift wrapping as a reason for customers to frequent their department store, much to the chagrin of little Timmy. By 1900, magazines like Good Housekeeping were recommending ending the old tradition of placing gifts up in the tree, because who wants to get sap all over their stuff anyway?
Looks great. Little full. A lot of sap.
Instead, they recommended wives lay white tissue paper all around the tree and present the gifts, all wrapped in their own white tissue paper, with the now available sticky seals in the shape of mistletoe or holly to help hold the tissue paper together at the edges. But why? But why wrap all these gifts? Simply because a magazine said we were supposed to? Well, not me. Women. It has been theorized that the reason wrapping so ornately became such a phenomenon was that with the onset of mass-produced commercialized goods, the thought behind gifts was diminished. Instead of searching store after store for that unique one-of-a-kind gift, shoppers were able to walk into one store and get gifts for the entire family. The heart had left the gift-giving experience. So how to show someone that they still wanted to put effort into their gift despite the ease of purchase? Spend time making it look absolutely extravagant and perfect. What better way to show you cared for someone than spending an absurd amount of time on the presentation of their gift, knowing full well it would be ripped to shreds in a fraction of that time? By 1910, companies were starting to catch on to the idea that women shoppers were not looking forward to wrapping each and every gift they bought, even if they came in a lovely box. So they started to have the boxes come with the wrapping already done. All kinds of products from soap to hosiery to rain gear to cook stoves all showed up at stores in pre-wrapped Christmas boxes. Some of the boxes were actually wrapped in a lovely bow. Some just had wrapping printed onto them to give the appearance of a wrapped gift. These boxes were typically adorned with an artificial sprig of holly, so they were aptly named holly boxes. And for a few years, they were a guaranteed way to have a product fly off the shelves. The Denison Manufacturing Company of Maine had the market cornered on holly boxes. Their boxes were so popular, in fact, that instead of just using their boxes to conceal products, they started selling their boxes directly to the consumer, allowing the shopper to place whatever product they wanted inside a Denison holly box. Soon to follow was holly tissue paper, gum holly seals to stick the tissue paper together, and eventually a whole line of Christmas cards and other wrapping paraphernalia. Their slogan of, "If you want a real Christmas, let Denison help you," appealed to the never-ending nostalgia that exists today of Christmases gone by. This is what gift wrapping was for many years. Holly tissue paper and pre-printed boxes, until a man named Joyce Hall in Kansas City in 1917 decided that he was sick of seeing the same red, green, and white tissue and the same holly pattern over and over again.
Put it over there with the others, Greaseball.
He, like every other store owner, sold Denison's holly paper in his store, until one Christmas they ran out. He ran into the stockroom and found some fancy French envelope liners and decided to sell those instead. Those sold out. The next year he tripled his stock. They sold out again.
You did it! Congratulations!
Until this point, Hall's main business was greeting cards, but now, after seeing how quickly different design tissue paper sold out, a new industry was born. He began to manufacture his own paper. Yellow, purple, cobalt, checkerboard, prints with foil seals depicting candles, lanterns, houses in the snow. People craved something different, and Joyce Hall found exactly what scratched that itch. And he went on to be the founder of a little company called Amazon. No, actually Hallmark, but still impressive. No longer were all gifts delivered in identical fashion on Christmas morning. You could now pick a design that directly reflected the interests of the recipient. increasing the thought that went into the wrapping. Kids would get wrapping paper with snowmen on it. The elderly would get Dickensian carolers, Santa Claus wrapping paper, evergreen forest wrapping paper. The options, as compared to 10 years earlier, were virtually endless. Wrapping paper took off in the 1930s. The Great Depression was in full swing, gifts were expensive, people didn't have any money, so the gifts became smaller, cheaper, more affordable. But do you know what was cheap? Wrapping supplies. The easiest way to make a cheap gift seem extravagant was by wrapping it in a luxurious fashion. With the advent of Scotch tape and a home dispenser in 1932, colored tape, cellophane, and transparent ribbon following close behind, wrapping became a necessity to grandiosify those homemade and budget gifts. Americans had more time than money, and they chose to spend it wrapping presents. After a slight relapse to understated wrapping during the turmoil of World War II, when product lines were diminishing,
Taxes will keep democracy on the march.
elegant wrapping came back with a vengeance in the 50s and never slowed down. Getting a wrapped gift on Christmas morning is one of the best feelings in the world. Is it because there's a gift inside? Or is it because you know someone took the time to make sure you felt that unadulterated joy that they see on your face as you hold the beautifully wrapped box, maybe giving it a little shake, wondering what's inside? Today it seems like wrapping gifts was a foregone conclusion, but it took almost 100 years for it to be regular practice in 96% of homes in the United States. So the takeaway is this: if you love someone, wrap their gift. Don't use a gift bag. Much of what I talked about was lifted out of my favorite Christmas history book, Merry Christmas, Celebrating America's Greatest Holiday by Carol Ann Marling. I can't recommend it enough. I'll drop a link in the description if you're interested in picking it up. And no, I don't get any money if you buy it. I just highly recommend it if this interests you at all. Thank y'all for watching. We will see you next week.